Hello, everybody. It has been a while since I have done a show, and I don't think I've ever done a live one on Rumble. So, all of you, welcome. I am Ann Craftatus, Virginia warrior mom to some, pain in the ass to most, and proudly so. So, I'm going to try to make this quick because I've been known to do epic hour shows, many hour shows. But I was supposed to be in Gloucester this morning and I had a sick child. But I wanted to jump on. If you guys have not read the 900-page document known as Project 2025. And if you have existed in the education realm, you'll know that anything regarding a title in a year, like Agenda 21, Goals 2000. I mean, that kind of stuff is petrifying to most of us. So I wanted to quickly, and I know there's a woman on my Facebook page who tried to reach out to me regarding Project 2025 and is irate because she doesn't want to pay. She's not going to pay attention to because I didn't call her to talk about this. This has been going on for 2 years. So if you think, lady, that you're offending me, guess what? I do a lot in this state, and I'm sorry I didn't have time to slow down and call you back. But this freight train, Project 2025, if you haven't read it or a part of it, it's 900 pages. But let me and as I look back, when somebody was like, "Oh, Ann, look, this is where you can submit yourself to be part of the Trump administration," and I was like, "Oh, that's funny." Now I look back and I'm like, "Holy crap, that's what this was." So you can go to heritage.org and click on any of the links, the policy agenda, personal recruitment, training. I mean, you get into the and it's like watching neocon nightmare. Conservative governance, advancing policy. I mean, it's just it's an overall, there's a 180-day playbook policy agenda. Now, Trump has said that he doesn't know anything about this, that this is not any part of his, and I'm sitting here with my fingers crossed being like, God, I hope so. And I hope more people like me reach out to him and encourage them to distance themselves from this madness because, okay, so we're going to back away from being pro-life abortion. Okay. Everybody knows how I feel about that. But there's not one part of this document, and I'm going to strictly look at education because that's what I do, that is limited government, that is decentralizing the federal role in education, that is anything. So when Trump's like, I'm going to defund Fed Ed. Okay, he already said that once. Reagan said that. Okay, I'm going to go over Heritage and Reagan real quick too. Is that handing the Fed Ed off to the Department of Health, Human and Health, that's not defunding federal education. Okay. Handing any part of it off to the DOJ is not defunding Fed Ed. When we talk about defunding Fed Ed, we mean the unconstitutional, the 10th Amendment, not only that, but the U.S. Code prohibiting federal education. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about redispersing it across 10 agencies at the federal level versus one, which is what Heritage is suggesting. So quickly, I'm going to, let's see, bring up, there we go. So if you've ever read Charlotte Iserbyt, and God bless, I wish that she and Schlafly and everybody who fought this, Karen Ephraim, I mean, there's like 20 of us across the United States who have the cojones to go after this. And God bless, I wish. And so I'm going to channel my inner Charlotte Iserbyt, who resigned, quit the Reagan administration, you've never read The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America, all 700 and some pages of it, I suggest you do so. But this memo was mentioned in the book, and I had to go find it, and I couldn't find it. So this would be a Heritage Foundation education update from April 1982. So we know that in 1979, Carter, Department of Education. Reagan ran in 80 on. I'm going to defund Fed, correct? So, and I've said this 100 times, and it really makes people angry when I pee in their Reagan is a hero Cheerios. But Reagan did not defund it, he merged us with the Soviets, with Gorbachev. I'll get to that in a second too. So I had to find this in a script. That's how hard it was. And I'm a researcher to find, that's how hard they tried to scrub the internet of the existence of this Heritage. I'm guessing Heritage did, because I don't really think the Reagan administration would have cared that much. But so anybody, let's see, if I remove that, there's my email down at the bottom. You can email me and I'll send you any of these documents. But right here, this one, Bell appears to be moving forward with a far-reaching technology initiative which calls for federal leadership in a partnership with the private sector and the education community for the major development of computer-based software curriculum. This latest development comes as a bombshell to those who thought the Reagan administration was committed to private sector and local school initiative curriculum development. So this entire newsletter, and it's about 8 pages long, is a criticism of what Reagan promised versus what Reagan delivered. Now, it's all blamed on Terrell Bell, which those of you who follow me, I've been screaming, a president is only as good as his people, okay? A president cannot dismantle Fed Ed by himself. If this cannot be done at a AstroTurf Heritage, anybody, like, you're going to have to bring in, if Trump actually wants to be the person that he is, and those of you that are not looking at this going, holy crap, I'm scared, because the republic is going to cease to exist because of education. If you don't care about education, you have to, because this has been going on so long. The American experiment will come to a grinding halt. If you care about abortion, if you care about your gun rights, if you care about election integrity, whatever it is that you care about, it does not matter, because at the end of the next president's term, whether it is a libtard or it is a conservative or it is a Republican or it is a Dem light or whatever you want to call them, the American experiment will come to a grinding halt because of what the children have been taught, to which Heritage alludes to in this letter right here. Let's see if can I zoom in? Okay. And I've been talking humanism, okay? The profession that has used so much of our human capital for the purpose of changing society and modifying student behavior. They acknowledge it in 1982, but has anybody ever heard Heritage or any of their offshoots talk about this? They knew about it. I've read books from the 60s and 70s. People, Barbara Morris, B.K. Eekman, John Steinbacher, so Heritage knew this was going on. Have you heard them talk about any of this? And they're like, oh, well, they've had so many changes of leadership. I don't care. Then stop being the front runner of conservatism in America. If you're not going to pay attention, it's like school boards. Well, we don't know what the prior policy was that was adopted before us. Don't care. Change. So they know that teaching in 82 was for changing society and modifying student behavior. It is itself unable to deal well with critical self-examination. In the field of medicine, if we pay attention, in the field of medicine, if we had a proportionally large number of patients dying following medical treatment, we would rightly conclude that there was something amiss with the medical practitioners. I'm sorry, Heritage 1982, what was that? In the field of medicine, if we had a proportionally large number of patients dying from medical treatment, we would rightly conclude that there was something amiss with the medical practitioners. 1982, Heritage wrote this. And then you want to come at me with Project 2025? Not happening. In education, the patterns of public authority and responsibility have become so hopelessly complex and diffuse that in the current maze, the public, individually or collectively, can never hope to hold the professional educators responsible for their poorly educated children. 1982. Just a sample. And again, once I unshare screen, you can email me and I'll gladly send this to you. But then let's go to, it goes on and on. So I just wanted to, so the technology initiative, which by the way, data. They don't ever mention it in their, Lindsay Burke in her manifesto. They don't ever talk about data. None of it. Why? I live in Virginia. I can tell you why. There is every indication that for the educationist trendsetters, the computer age in education will be to the 80s what humanizing education, that should be a capital H for humanist. That would be John Dewey. That would be all of the Wundt, Skinner, everybody that's for the last 40 years has shaped education. That's what they're talking about right here. What humanizing education was to the 70s. Okay? They acknowledge a lot in this letter that they tried to scrub from the internet. Why? Because like a year later, they were praising the same exact people that they're criticizing here. So that's exactly why they wanted to scrub it from the internet forever. But sorry, found that. And so just a quick, I wanted to pull up, I'm not going to get into the whole Gorbachev. If you want those documents strictly from Geneva Summit and the Reykjavik, and then summed it up at the DC Summit about how Reagan sold us out to the Gorbachevs. And by the way, guys, the Iron Curtain never fell. Sorry. But we can't fix the nation. We can't save the children until we acknowledge what is going on. And that's calling out people by names. I will be the most hated woman in America as long as I save my children, I save my nation, and God says, you're good. But here, so this is from, this is great. I say great. Okay. I can't close this out because Education Week makes you pay for it. Man, I'm not going to pay for it. So this would be at 1988. Gorbachev's glasnost policy paves ways for joint U.S.-Soviet education initiatives. The great thing about this article is high school students from 44 states gathered where? Norfolk, Virginia, right here. So those of you that want to question me about whether Reagan did or did not sell us out to the glasnost of Gorbachev at Geneva and Reykjavik, Iceland, right here, you can look it up. Education Week. Gorbachev's glasnost policy paves way for joint U.S.-Soviet education initiatives. What happened to 1980? I'm going to get rid of the Department of Education. Gathered in Norfolk, Virginia last week to exchange their views with Soviet counterparts in a satellite transmitted youth summit. Just right there. I think I might actually be able to copy and paste this one. I don't know if it's going to come up in comments or not, or where in comments it will come up. But again, happy to, so it comes up in YouTube maybe, but it's a long art. But you can look it up. But again, here's my email right here at the bottom under my name, and I will send you any of these documents. Because again, people are like, oh, you're anti-Trump. What are you, a liberal now? No, I want to stop the freight train from destroying this wonderful free nation before, and I'm showing you the evidence that the people that are driving the Trump train are broken. Where they broke, I don't know. I don't care. I care that it's not that I'm anti-Trump. I'm pro-America. Let's just be clear about that. There are two very different things. And then another one of the great, this one actually, when the first time I read it, it made me want to vomit. From good old Heritage, Virginia Miller. This would be 2001. The new definition of standards in American education, from Virginia Miller of Heritage. Okay. So she goes into As post-secondary schools increasingly assume the responsibilities of elementary and secondary education, and as employers and parents complain about the failures of school to teach basic skills, the standards movement has become the latest attempt to remedy lagging performance. So they mention they mention Goals 2000. So federal funding of education programs through such legislation as the Improving America Schools Act and Goals 2000. That would be whom? Big Bush and Clinton. Impose state content and performance standard tied to state assessments as a condition of funding eligibility. Indeed, the mantra of the day in education reform is high academic standards with accountability. But it goes on to say, where is it? The danger is that the new standards may elevate workplace competencies above essential academic knowledge. What have I been saying about workforce education? It is not education, the purpose is not to get a job. And right here, Heritage says it. The danger is that the new standards may elevate workplace competencies above essential academic knowledge. Not all education is vocational education. Schools should not be required or encouraged by federal funding to narrow their focus to emphasize workplace skills. The failure of vocational education in America to provide a quality education for non-college bound students is no reason to infuse workforce education throughout the elementary and secondary education system. Yet we have a red vest governor that is currently, that's all he talks about is workforce. Children are a cog in a machine. Get them a skill, get them a family earning wage. Do you know what that is? It is $23,000 a year. So what Heritage knows from the Reagan administration through 2001 versus what they're doing now is the thing that I have a major problem with. And those of you that are part of Heritage watching this going, we didn't know about that. I don't care. I'm stopping the freight train if I'm the only person. So she goes on to say, to improve education, Washington, that's your number one indicator of a problem there. Washington should not have done anything. Washington should assure that efforts to promote standards focus on academic standards. That's what we're talking about. When you don't hear anything, anybody running for school board, if they're not talking about academics, question that. More important, state legislators and education officials at the state and local level should eliminate school-to-work programs and activities from comprehensive elementary and secondary education. Eliminate school-to-work. But would Heritage in Virginia ever question the Red Manchurian governor? No. I go to battle with them every year in the General Assembly. Don't care. Would they ever say this? Nope. Develop and incorporate education standards that are academic, rigorous, specific, measurable, and non-prescriptive of methodology or ideology, and that focus on academic content rather than workplace competencies. Again, you can look it up. Virginia Miller, the new definition of standards in American education, April 4th, 2001. Thank you, Heritage. Eli, why are you so angry all the time? I'm angry because I know what I'm talking about. That's why my shirt says based. And nobody will listen. So yeah, I'm angry. But the difference between angry and mean, keep that in context. So let's pull up this whammy right here. This is just the education board. This is not the 900-page document. This is just the Department of Education static.project. You can, but I can just send you this linportion. But just in the first paragraph, there's a problem. Federal education policy. I'm going to zoom in. Okay. Lindsay Burke. No, her. Federal education policy should be limited. No, it should not, Lindsay. should not be limited. Do you know why it should not be? Oh, there it is. Sorry. Do you know why it should not be limited, Lindsay? Let me pull that up real quick. Did you know there's actually, I'll just read it to you. I don't want to keep, I will be on here. Whatever. Let's see, where is it? Oh, here it is. I'll just pull this up. Did you know that not only is it the fact that it's not the 10th Amendment, everybody's like, oh, 10th Amendment is not in the Constitution. There's actually U.S. Code. 20 U.S. Code 1232A, prohibition against federal control of education. No provision of any applicable program shall be construed to authorize any department, agency, officer, or employee of the United States to exercise any direction, supervision, or control of the curriculum, program of instruction, administration, or personnel of any education institution, school, or school system, or over the selection of libraries, textbooks, or other printed and published instruments. It's a U.S. code that you can't have federal education. So right from the beginning, ma'am, we're going to start with federal education policy should be limited. No. So the first part of that sentence, you are again unconstitutional and you are violating the U.S. code that prohibits the federal what? Federal control of education. U.S. code. So here, this is what this comes down to before I continue, is that there are mothers like me that are fully for, it's called deprivation of rights under the color of law, is that you are setting Donald J. Trump up for the world's biggest Supreme Court case in which I don't care what color vest you wear. You're not taking my rights. You're not violating the United States Constitution. You're not, America's going to run like America. And there are few of us that are willing to do what the founding fathers did to maintain the constitutional republic and the American experiment, which is about to come to a grinding halt. There are very few of us, but those that are willing, I will cross the Rubicon alone if I have to. Born that way, don't care. So then she goes on to, and ultimately, the federal Department of Education should be eliminated, right? So people right there are going to be like, oh, yep, she said it. But then this just becomes nothing but a education, a school choice propaganda piece. It's 40 pages of school choice propaganda. Not only that, but federal school choice. Okay. So again, it's like a federal parent bill of rights. So again, we're violating exactly what we want is we're limited government, decentralizing, removing from the control of the federal, because now they want our post-secondary institutions should also reflect such diversity with room for not only traditional liberal arts colleges and research universities, but also faith-based institutions, career schools, military, and lifelong learning programs. Guys, this is all I'm going to say about lifelong learning, because that could be its own, is that Virginia Beach has contracts for lifelong learning to microchip children. Just to throw that out there. That's another term that if you don't know what lifelong learning is, stop saying it. So elementary and secondary education policy should follow the path outlined by Milton Friedman in 1955. What did Milton Friedman, people like me, and they're like, well, I'm just not going to take Lindsay's word for it. I need to go find out what Milton Friedman actually had to say about in 1955. And I did. And so it's, again, he's also known as the school choice originator. Trying to find which part I want to read. But it's not only that, but it is a let's break it down. Okay. So Milton Friedman said that general education for citizenship and specialized vocational education. No, because here's the thing, and I wish I had a picture of it, but those of you that are on Facebook, I show it all the time. In 1949, the U.S. House of Representatives, back when we had a Committee for Un-American Activity, stated, it's called 100 Things You Should Know About Communism. When you go to the education portion, number 5 is when you have replaced all actual education and academics for training of children, you have communism. If they said it in 1949 that when you only want to train children, not educate them, you have communism. Why don't we pay attention to this? Okay. Citizenship. No, you don't know what kind of citizen they're educating them to be. Number 2. And then vocational education. So again, heritage has come full circle with the where is it? What they again said in 2001 was a horrific idea. So now Lindsay is saying that we should do what Milton Friedman said, and then we should also have federal school choice. That's not decentralizing anything. That's not constitutional republic, Lindsay. Okay. Again, it's just it's a school choice propaganda piece. And for those of you, I'm not going to get into the school choice debate. I'm simply going to say that we don't want to hit the ground running on day one with Donald Trump with school choice, because it's going to be a wasted 4 years. It's a battle. It's an uphill battle, much less federal school choice, because there's people like me that know how to knock it out at the knees with what Obama did in his administration that did not go through Congress, that he could whack it out if he actually wanted to fix the problem. And none of it is mentioned in here. And then she goes on to say, it should be rebalanced to focus more on bolstering workforce skills. The purpose of education is not to get a job. It is to build a foundation of knowledge that you can then have unlimited. The job is the outcome. It is to build a life. It is to have a foundation, not to graduate with a skill so that you can become part of a cog in a machine and have one skill the rest of your life. That's a miserable existence. But when you go through, and they actually call it the presidential transition project. So if the president has not, or the future president or Trump has nothing to do with it, he needs to tell them to take that off, because it's literally what it's called. So he's claiming now that he has nothing to do with it. I don't know what this is. So if he doesn't, then he needs to say, Heritage, you need to take your name off, or take off presidential. Or I don't have anything to do with this. I would walk away like this, Trump. But they go on, they mention the NEA, they mention a whole lot of things, you know, that people will be like, okay, but then it's like, oh, advancing education freedom. We're back to school choice. And then providing education choice for federal children. Military families, did you know that you gave birth to federal children? Or DC, if you were born in DC, did you know that you gave birth? Or Native American tribes, did you know that you have federal children? Restoring state and local control over education funding. As Washington begins to downsize its intervention in education, existing funding should be sent. No funding sent to the states from the feds. No. It's 8% of our funding, of what we take, and we give away 100%. You can keep your 8%. Why? Because we're paying for it. We already pay for it in our taxes. It already comes out for our state allotment. It already comes out for the feds to give us. We don't want you to give us 8%. We would like to keep our 8% of our money. We don't want it sent from the feds. So existing funding should be sent to the states as grants. No, I had a conversation with Chip Roy, Bob Good, Matt Gates, Andy Biggs. No, the grants have to stop. As long as the grants of any kind, we won't have control over the grants. The grants come with stipulations. That's it. That's the only reason you get a grant. You can find your state, you can find your city, you can find their grant application to get the money. It comes with stipulation. Done deal. And they mentioned gender ideology, they mentioned critical race theory, which are all of these like trigger points that, it has the libs going nuts. The libs are like, oh my God, like they mentioned gender ideology, man, they mentioned critical race theory. Like it's all a big psyop to get people like, oh, if the libs are mad about it, it must be good, right? No. Stopping executive overreach. Congress should set policy. Okay, here's the thing. Congress doesn't set policy. Policy is not law. Okay. Policy has to be based on law. Okay. This is where Congress should set policy. That is not in the United States Constitution for Congress to set policy. Not presidents through pen and and they go through the NAEP, and yes, our children are failing, and yes, there's these nice little graphs that yes, yes, our children are failing. And again, I will send you this whole document, but I would be here all night if I read through it. Okay. But here's the nitty gritty. Reduce the number of programs managed and transfer some remaining programs to other federal agencies. Again, we're back at Betsy DeVos when people are like, oh, well, Trump was getting ready to get rid of the Department of Education. No, he didn't. He merged it with the Department of Labor. That's not getting rid of it. Like, we're just going to rename it. Paint a trash can a different color. It's still a trash can. That's not getting rid of the Department of Education when you disperse the Department of Education amongst 10 federal agencies. Transfer Title I, Part A, which provides federal funding for lower, to the Department of Health and Human Services. Specifically, Administration for Children and Families. But see, here's where there's a really big problem with that, is that Obama, and I've said this before, and people are like, oh, how do you know that? Okay, Obama made Title I and IDEA and the ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act, which followed No Child Left Behind, which followed Clinton re-signing the ESEA, which followed LBJ's original Elementary Secondary Education Act. Same trash can, we just rename it, okay? In 2015, if you read the 600-page Every Student Succeeds Act, and it's funny rinky-dink language, and actually Cardona and Biden last year with IDEA also, again, none of this stuff went through Congress except ESSA, but is that made all children at risk. It's very important when people are like, why aren't they taking care of the special ed kids? Because the IDEA funding, and this is a winning platform for anybody who cares, is when you talk about Title I, the historically marginalized. Where is their money? Well, Obama made all children at risk because in doing so, that's how he brought in all of these universal Tier 1 mental health programs. So you can't mention Title I. And so people say, well, okay, is that, I'm not going to read it to you, but right here, Every Student Succeeds Act, funding for social emotional learning in ESSA, right here. And this is from the Association for Curriculum Development, ASCD. If you don't know who they are, they're telling you. It's like right there. It tells you exactly how, under the Every Student Succeeds Act, funding for social emotional learning, Title I, Part A, Part C, Part D, Title II, Part A, Title IV, right there. This is a root problem, okay? Here, this Project 2025 is nothing but fluff. It is not a roadmap to anywhere. It is not a blueprint or a how-to, okay? It's not, because that you have people, it's like, I can give you 10 concrete solutions to do day one, knock it out at the knees, wrench in the gears if you actually wanted to stop this. And none of it has to do with school choice, because that's a battle. And again, it doesn't belong with Donald Trump. And then when it comes, this one came out, second step, if you know about social emotional learning, when I was digging into that, follow the money, is when we talk about IDEA is right here. This came from funds for purchasing second step programs. That would be social emotional learning. They actually broke it down into how to use IDEA, Title I, what we just talked about, Title II, Title IV, Title VIII, the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act. So the homeless kids' money, that would be Obama, how to use it for second step. And that would be by making all children at risk. So you can't talk about anything about IDA, how you're going to fix it, or Title I until you talk about these issues. So real quick, and I'm not going to make you seasick, let's go down to Virginia. And again, just email me, right? My email's right there, parentteam6@gmail. More, it's right here. I'm backwards. I'll send you any of these documents. Let's see, where's Virginia? Maryland, Missouri. I got every state. You want to know how much second step says that your state can steal IDEA kids' money and Title I kids' money to pay for social emotional learning for all children, traumatizing and giving mental health to all children? It's like giving chemo to all people, hoping to prevent some cancer. I mean, you might poison a whole bunch in the process, but hey, at least we may have prevented one person from dying of cancer. That's exactly what that is. So in a nutshell. Virginia, right here. All right. Sorry, I didn't want to make you seasick as I scrolled through. So right here, this came, and second step, guys, is like the whammy of the cabal of seconds. So yeah, it's a big deal that it came from them. Virginia, let's see, IDEA, they're saying that you can use $292 million of IDEA money for social emotional learning. And this is not including the ESSER money. Okay. And then you've got Title I, the historically marked, and this is where the NAACP, the ACLU could not get a flying flip, amongst other things, is $264 million of Title I money. That's just one part of Title I is going to social emotional learning, mental health, all that other stuff. So you can't just talk about, Lindsay, Title I, transfer Title I. So again, like school choice, if you transfer Title I, which was by Obama, made all children at risk. See, that's all children are now going to be transferred to the Department of Health and Human Services. I don't want I don't want a Department of Education, but I certainly don't want my children's information being at the Department of Health and Human Services, specifically the Administration for Children and Families, which in Virginia sounds really nice, like the Children's Cabinet. No, it's like CPS. You imagine, oh, we're going to Child Protective Services. That's essentially what that is. Instead of the Department of Education, because we either are corrupt and we don't know what we're talking about, we're going to transfer everything from the Department of Education that made all children at risk, including your children, because you didn't know about it, to the Administration for Children and Families. That is frightening. Okay. Move student-driven impact aid program to the Department of Defense Education Authority. Did you know that there was a DODEA? You should. Why do we want anything transferred to the DOD? And then the DC Opportunity Scholarship Program, which provides vouchers to low-income living in the nation's capital, appropriate as DC is under the jurisdiction of Congress, should be expanded into a universal. So they want to take, again, a DC program and expand it to all 50 states. That's not limited government. That's not reining anything in, guys. And again, move it to the Department of Health and Human Services. So we're not getting rid of Fed Ed, guys. We're not giving things back to the state. Okay, transfer Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education to the Department of Labor. Tribally control and to the Bureau of Indian Education. I don't know enough about Indian education. I even feel bad saying Indian. I don't even know if that is correct now. It used to not be correct. I don't know. But I don't know enough about that to say who has control over reservations or whatnot. The Office of Special Education and Rehabilitative Services houses nearly 24 programs. Thank you for acknowledging that. Ranging from funding for IDEA and the National Technical Institute for the Deaf and Special Olympics funding, Printing House for the Blind. So like Gallaudet and that kind of stuff. Most IDEA funding should be converted into a no-strings formula block grant targeted at students with disabilities and distributed. How are you going to convert what made all children at risk? And then distributed directly to local education agencies by the Health and Human Service Administration for community living. That's community schools. That's whole child. That's a living socialist nightmare. Transfer, again, we're vocation rehabilitation grants to the Bureau of Indian Education. And then right here, I don't quite get the DOJ. They want to move the Office of Civil Rights to the DOJ. How corrupt is the DOJ? At least with the OCR, you know exactly where it's going. But why would a civil rights complaint? That would be PPRA. That would be FERPA. That the things that you don't know about that your rights as a parent are being, but they don't mention any of that. But the Office of Civil Rights, you have a direct link that you can fill out a complaint if you were not notified for your rights and by your division, your school board under PPRA, FERPA, amongst 100 other things. You want to transfer OC to the DOJ. Consolidating the OCR is actually like one of the only like division like that is constitutional, right? Because civil rights are a federal thing. Like that's exactly, you don't consolidate something like that with the DOJ. Civil Rights Act, all of them deserve their own department. That's what that falls into. That's like the one thing that is constitutional and does belong there. Getting it under reins is the problem. Okay. I will follow up again. Let's see. I gave myself an hour, so I'm coming up on it. And then it goes, the student loan stuff, it goes into all the stuff that like makes, Republicans like, oh yeah, they're doing something great here. They mentioned critical race theory. They mentioned transgender. They mentioned, 800, 8 trigger words that make people be like, yeah, they're doing something. No, if you don't do education policy, if you don't know what you're fighting for or against, you're just going with the herd mentality. Get out of the rank, get out of the way, catch up, call people like me if you're willing to look at what's actually happening. And I'll get you up to speed. But if not, if you're just a herd mentality Republican, right of center, that's like, oh, school choice is the only way out. And if you're not pro school choice, then you're anti-parent. Literally had that said to me. But they have no idea. They can't argue anything about what it is or what it isn't. That vouchers, ESAs, like micro school, all that's different. Congress should pass and the next president should sign a Department of Education Reorganization Act. That's not a defund Fed Ed. That's not get rid of the Department of Education. It's a reorganization act. Oh, charters. I mean, it's the whole thing is absolute BS. And it's frightening the fact that the people like, guess what? I'm a Tea Party conservative. And the fact that the Tea Party patriots signed on to this makes me want to vomit. And if you go to their website, heritage.org, you can see 100 organizations have signed on to this. AFL, American Principles Project. Like, this is like half the people that I learned everything like I knew from. It's like Concerned Women for America. What? Defense of Freedom and Eagle Forum. Schlafly would be rolling over in her grave. Is rolling over in her grave right now. Shame on you. And I knew that they'd gone Looney Tunes as her daughter's family research account. Like, this is the problem. This is the problem. Oh, I'm not showing you, am I? Heartland, Heritage, Hillsdale College. What? Abigail Schreier, I was just reading your book on social emotional. Like, what? Independent Women's Forum. Liberty University. Moms for Liberty. Shocker. Noah Webster. Not a shock. See, this is the problem, is that people are like, oh, you just spoke out against a conservative group that I respect a whole lot. Congratulations. At one point in time, I did too. Tea Party Patriots. Shame on you. Turning Point. YAF. See, guys, the problem is that you look at that and you say, oh, yeah, got to be a great idea. Got to be a great idea. No. And the fact that there's one, I'm not the problem. They'll say I'm the problem because I'm stirring the pot. I'm making people think. Okay. Students for Life America, are you still going to sign on to that? Are you still students for life, or are you students for life up till like, I just can't. Like, the Patriot Foundation, like, I just can't. Am I shocked? No. Because grassroots, being grassroots education is like being in a minefield, but having the armor to withstand the minefield for over 3 years now. And there are not many of us that are willing to go up. I can do it. And mixed in with all of these, you've got like Middle Resolution, Family Foundation. If you're in Virginia, it's like all these little like that are nothing but arms and sects of this. Like, I'm actually shocked at maybe one. But these are also the same people that I see praying in the General Assembly and posting pictures about praying with Ghazal Hashmi or praying with what. If you're in a senator's office like that, somebody who wants to cut the breasts of our children, who wants to give porn to them, who wants to remove family rights, and you're in there praying or you're in there taking pictures with them, you're somewhere along the way, you've lost the message, So again, I've got a sick child. I've got to jump off of here. But please, and if you don't know how to contact me, which it's not hard to find, my page is public on Facebook and Craftatives, just like it says right there. And I will send you any of these documents if anybody actually wants to dig into this and start questioning these things, because this is the man. And if he's not a part of this, and somebody forward this to good old DJT and then tell him, you need to tell them to take off. He needs to make a statement, not just because Biden called him out. Like, he needs to be like, yeah, you know that this whole thing, I don't have any part of that because right now I'm just not buying it. And as I told the Manchurian governor of Virginia almost 3 years ago, is I'll be your worst nightmare for the next 4 years. And I still am. And why? Is because when you know right is right, wrong is wrong. And when it comes to the existence of our children and what is conscription, because through compulsory education, you're legally required to send them into government schooling or find another way, is that if you're not willing to fight, because how do you get an entire nation of children to act the exact same way. And this is what they want to blame parents. We're not that creative. We didn't get a phone tree and be like, hey, you want to stop being a bad parent like 15 years ago? Oh, yeah, you do too. Okay, call whoever you know in Arkansas. You call whoever you know over in, Nebraska. We didn't have this massive phone tree to all of a sudden start being bad parents. It's called we trusted too long and we sent them into a captive environment 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. That's how you get not only a state of children acting feral. They call in education, they call them dysregulated, or they have no regulation. Like that's what it's the educationists. And is it horrific? Yes, but the answer is not school choice, because there are not enough privates that are not compromised. Number one, Heather said, maybe you should tell him to call me. Tell him to call me. Like I have immense, because of everything that he's done for the children, I have immense respect for him. But is that I could give anybody running for office, right of center, a platform that would win the black vote, that would win anybody, a poor white, is that anybody who thinks they're a Democrat and votes Democrat, I could give them a platform on education. Because the school to prison pipeline that they don't want to mention here is that 4th grade literacy is how they forecast prison matriculation. So the fact that we are 50th in the nation, and I called the NAACP out, I called the ACLU at the Board of Education and shamed all of them because you say that you speak for the historically marginalized. No, you speak for your own personal agenda, which is destroying this nation. And in the process, you are destroying Black children, whatever you want to call them, non-melanin, whatever. I hate that I even have to mention that because there are tons of poor white children that you're destroying also. Because how do they determine how many prisons they're going to build? 4th grade literacy. We are 50th in the nation. And that's not anything. We're just the one state that is below basic. Okay. Every state's below proficient. Is that nobody wants to talk about what is literacy too? Because to you and me, literacy is, can you read words, make out a sentence? That's no. We're not even talking about the same literacy anymore. We're talking about cultural literacy. We're talking about digital literacy, media literacy, 800 different kinds of literacy. We're not just talking about being illiterate. I could pull out the illiteracy numbers of the amount of adults that cannot read. It costs 2.2 trillion, the United States, $2.2 trillion a year because of the amount of illiterate adults. And lifelong learning is not going to fix that. Lifelong learning is there is no actual foundation base of fact anymore. We're living in situational ethics, moral relativity. And so since facts are there is no factual basis for children to learn anymore, and every facts will be continuously changing over the rest of eternity. Yes, neoliberalism is that's lifelong education. You will have to constantly be educated, constantly, because there are no facts anymore. That's lifelong education. And Virginia Beach, by the way, has contracts for their 2040 plan to microchip children for lifelong learning education. So it's either welcome to, you're in 1984, Hunger Games, any of those dystopian nightmares, that's where we are. So you can wake up, get on board. Maybe I will help RFK Jr. Maybe I will. But it's a matter of, they're like, oh, no, it is not a matter of Biden or Trump or whoever. If anybody actually thought that the Democrats were going to run Biden before then I don't know where you've been, because I could have told you 2 years ago, there's no way they're going to run him again. I can't even believe they didn't usurp him beforehand. Is that, am I going to bow to this idea of I have to give away some more conservative values? I had somebody say, like, did you actually think Trump was actually a Republican or a conservative this whole time? He used to be. You're literally just saying this to me? Because there are some of us that have only been doing politics since we realized how our kids were. So no, it's not like I was like, everything that I know, guess what? I have in August 10th, 2021. I will hit my August 10th, my 3-year anniversary of being in this fight. So never, ever question the power that you have as one person. And when the heroes of this story will not be me, because I was born to do this. High defiant nonconformist, born a rebel, just finally found a purpose for it. The heroes will be the people that can stand up shoulder to shoulder with me, with us, with the few of us. How many people were signed the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution? How many people? Anybody know? Not many. And that's not because they were the rich and the privileged. That was one of the most concise examples of freedom. And that's why it's called the American experiment, that we are flushing down the toilet. And so every time you ask me to compromise a little bit more and give away a little bit more so that we can all get along, my answer is going to continuously be like, no, you have to move the needle back to the right. I'm not moving it anymore to the left. And when it comes to my children, I will go down in a young guns blaze of glory, because I know what I know because I've done the work. People don't know. So don't come at me talking about how if you're not pro. No, is that because this list of people, where did they go? You should be questioning them. Have you read this? If you know somebody that's a member of one of these groups, have you read this document? How in the world does this document get rid of anything? How does it decentralize? How does it return power to the states? And then if they were to return power to the states, how do you go in and you have to have people literally say, these programs that were forced on you by the grants, by the federal Department of Education, that was unconstitutional and violated the United States Code, prohibition against federal control of education. It's not just the 10th Amendment, guys. So you have an entire document here by the Heritage that, again, violates the United States Code, not just the 10th Amendment. Because none of this is about redistribute. Okay, it's not about they're going to get rid of the Department of Education. They're going to redistribute it to other federal agencies that are more frightening than Miguel Cardona. I promise you that much. You don't want your children and their education being in the hands of any family you do not want anybody at the federal level having control over you and your family. And that's all that this document is. Wendy, call me tomorrow. I can't deal with it. But you have to get in the education game. You have to get in the education game. Why? Because if you care about your 2A rights, guess what? They are codifying children with enough mental illnesses like unhappiness, shyness, nervousness, uncontrollable crying. That's the whole Head Start pre-K thing. They are codifying children with enough mental illnesses right now that what happens if they throw a red flag law? Guns gone. Because in the state of Virginia, that information sits 75 years post-graduation. So we're talking a generational guns gone. And it's been going on long enough that right now you've got about 6 to 7 years of children that will, if they throw a red flag law like Biden just tried to do. And Trump was a red flag guy. Remember that. Is that your guns will go bye-bye. Is that abortion this, abortion that? Is that what these children, the education that they have been receiving, is it won't matter what level of abortion you think Biden would do or Trump would do. Oh, Biden, I said it again. Is that they will believe, because they have been trained by behaviorists and eugenicists, that is what education is that it is your right to abort a fetus whenever you want. And you're thinking, my kid's not. Really? Do you know how many people who have children in college who approached me after I've spoken and said, now I understand why my child hasn't talked to me in 10 years? Precisely. So don't think that because it doesn't happen here or it doesn't happen at my school, it's at every school. And because it hasn't affected you yet is not an excuse not to get in the game. Because the day that my child came home at 11 years old telling me she had generalized anxiety disorder and she needed to see a therapist, my alarm went off and I got in the game. That's not normal. So why are you waiting until your child comes home damaged before you get in the game? That's what's at stake here. The nation, the children. I can't even tell you how passionate I am about this. And because everybody out there who has influence, because they want to have influence, is not talking about this, does not make me wrong. Because people who are out there writing books and making money and speaking and writing for whoever, the Federalist, because they're strictly stuck on SEL, UNESCO. Yeah, that's all part of it. But because they're not naming names, they're not calling out who needs to be called out, doesn't make me wrong. It makes the fact I don't care about relevance. I just want to save the children and this nation. And I just want to do what God tells me to do. That's it. I don't want to make $1. It doesn't make me wrong. You should start questioning the people who know, because I know all the people of relevance who talk about all of this Maoism and social emotional learning and everything, but they don't want to name names. I know all of them. I don't want to make money. I don't do this to make a living. I just want to save the nation and my children, maybe your children. So get in the game, read this document, start questioning the people. And I'm at an hour, and anybody who knows me knows I can talk for 3 hours. But I have a sick child. I'm going to go. Here's how you contact me. And then another way, guys, it's not hard to find me. My life is public. But is that I can't be the only one questioning these people. This is a nightmare. It is a literal nightmare. And you can find it on their website, or again, email me and I will get it out there to everybody. The PDF, so therefore I can't share it. This education version, but I can send you the 900-page version. It's even more frightening because not just the Department of Education, they go into all the federal agencies. Is that this is a nightmare. It is a literal Project Hell No. Project FAFO, if I could give it any. Project, oh my God. Why were they at the Virginia Tea Party event 3 weeks ago? It makes me want to look at Nelson and go, no. Like, no. Is this what the Tea Party stands for now? No. So the Tea Party and the GOP are the same thing. Yep. Okay. This is not the time to your allegiance is to a party or a man. It is, I pledge allegiance to the United States of America. That's who you pledge allegiance to. And your children and God and your husband, your spouse, whoever. And yeah, all the ideology stuff, guys, that is horrific. But that is the symptom that you're just playing whack-a-mole with like I have a sneeze. My nose is running. I have an ear infection. Okay. You're not actually going after the disease itself. As if you rewind, if we go to the beginning of the tape, the 1982 Reagan heritage letter. I'm going to dig it out because I don't feel like pulling it up. Oh, right here. Heritage, 1982. I will send this to you. In the field of medicine, if we had a proportionally larger number of patients dying following medical treatment, we would rightly conclude that there was something amiss with the medical practitioners. This is 1982 regarding Reagan and Terrell Bell and what they were doing in education. And now the same people are writing the future for our nation with Donald Trump. But they knew it was going on in 1982 and tried to scrub it from the internet. I'm not playing that, and neither should you. On that note, I'm going to go. Have a blessed night, guys.